Hello and welcome into my Pear Fair 2022 session, Become a Pear Deck ExPEARt. My name is Jake Miller. I like cheesy dad jokes like the phrase ExPEARt instead of expert because I'm a dad and I've got to make jokes with puns like putting the word pear into expert because it's a Pear Deck session and that's the kind of things us dads do, right? I'm not only a dad though, I'm a big fan of Pear Deck and a lot of other educational technology tools, but Pear Deck is one of my favorites out there, so I'm really excited to share with you some kind of ninja skills with Pear Deck today. So as you can see at the bottom there, you can access these slides at jakemiller.net/exPEARt, spelled expert with an A in there to make it a dad joke. As I mentioned, my name is Jake. I am from Ohio here in the United States of America. I've worked in education for 19 years. This right now is my 20th year, and I'm working as a personalized learning specialist. But on the side, I am an EdTech aficionado. And as you can see there, eduducttape.com is one of the sites I have listed. That is the site for my podcast, Educational Duct Tape, and my book, Educational Duct Tape. And I'm also the host of a newer show called the EdTech News Brief. At the top of these slides here, you see a link to this session, jakemiller.net/exPEARt. At that link, not only can you get to these slides to reference them later if you want to, but more importantly, you can get to a giveaway that I do in every live session that I ever put on. So 2 different people will win prizes from this session, so make sure you fill out the form to win those prizes. The second prize I'll give away is a free sticker. Now, I generally give away free educational duct tape stickers to anybody who wants them, but this is a special free sticker because if you win, you pick either this one, which I believe to be the correct sticker, which says it's pronounced GIF with a hard G like gift, or you could pick this one, which I believe to be the incorrect one, which says it's pronounced GIF like the peanut butter. You win, you pick either of those, and I'll send it to you in the mail. One winner, the first winner I'll pick, will win a copy of my book, Educational Duct Tape. I will sign it. I'll make a pun joke about a pear in it, I'm sure, in the signature, and then I'll send it in the mail to you. So when you watch this session, fill out that form on that site to enter to win one of those 2 giveaways. I'll wait a while until most people have finished watching the Pear Fair sessions and things like that before I pick those winners. So you got time, and then I'll email out to let people know who won. Before I get too deep into the session, I do want to give a shout out to slidesmania.com. The template that I'm using for my slides today is a Slidesmania template. I changed the colors a bit, but it's a Slidesmania template, and Paula at Slidesmania does fantastic work. Highly recommend it. So now we're going to jump into some different Pear Deck skills. So my goal here is to help you become an ExPEARt, right? To help you level up to expert skills in your use of Pear Deck. The assumption is that if you're coming into this session, you already know how to use Pear Deck, you already know how to set up your slides, you know how to add the different question types, but maybe you're looking to level up a little bit. So I'm going to help you level up. And the first thing I'm going to help you level up with is timers. One of my favorite skills in Pear Deck is using timers. So here on this slide, this is something I like to start class periods off with a lot. It's just a silly drawing slide. Gets kids into class, gets them to log into the Pear Deck quickly, gives them something fun to do, gets them involved. They sit down, they focus, they start working on something, but with a smile on their face. And then we look at it and build some class community by talking about the slides or their drawings that they made. So this is an example of one. Draw a picture of a ladybug named Elaine. Now, when I do one of these, some of my kids would gladly take 20 minutes making this a perfect picture. I don't have 20 minutes to give them. So I set a timer when I'm doing it. Now, I don't just set a timer. I set a timer that locks the Pear Deck slide when I want them to be done. So let's see what this looks like. So I started a Pear Deck session of this with my own kids, Cohen, Parker, and Beckett, had them all jump onto Pear Deck from their devices, and then I set a timer while they were drawing. So to start a timer, all I have to do is click and hold on this Add Timer button. It works in the teacher dashboard or in the projector view, which you can see both of them on my screen here. That button is there in both of them for me. Actually, it says Lock Screens. I hold down Lock Screens, click and hold, kind of drag up, and I see 3 options: 30 seconds, 1 minute, and 3 minutes. Now, as much as I love Pear Deck, there's always things that you wish were different in the things that you love. I wish my favorite chocolate peanut butter ice cream had a little more peanut butter in it, but I still love it. Pear Deck, I wish had other times that I could select here, but I still love Pear Deck. But that's okay. There's a way around it. So watch, let's say I want to give my kids about 2 minutes on this. So I'll select 1 minute, and then I can add more on later. I can't walk away from the computer. I need to be ready to add that time on when it gets down to 0, but I could still give them 2 minutes by doing it kind of piece by piece, or maybe starting at 3, and then when I get down to 2, switching it over to 1 or something like that. Again, I wish I could customize it in, but here, I'm here to make you an ExPEARt, not to fix everything that I think could be better in Pear Deck. I'm trying to make you an ExPEARt. So this is how you start a timer, and this is how you can add more later. Now, you've got to be careful, because when it gets down to 0, it will lock their screen. So I always try to do it before it gets to 0. Otherwise, kids are like, you ruined my drawing. I was almost done. So I try to make that change before it hits to 0. So you can see, anyhow, while I'm in here, I could toggle between views. I can make it so I could see all of the kids' drawings at once. And speaking of which, look at them. These are adorable. I love these drawings. And again, when it hits 0, it's going to lock. So as it gets close to 0, I'll click on lock screens, hold and drag up and select a new time. So let's say I want about 2 minutes. I already gave them a minute and it's almost at 0. So I'll add another minute, and now they're getting about 2 minutes out of it. And they're going to beg for more time at the end anyhow, but sooner or later, we're going to have to stop here. And while it's going, I can click that button whenever I want to lock it. If I've given them 3 minutes and it turns out they only need 2.5 and I want to stop the timer half a minute early, I can just click on that button and go ahead and change it. Or I can add more if I need more. I can keep adding more as many times as needed. Kind of keeps them moving a little bit quicker, but then gives them more time so I'm not feeling stressed out. So you've got some flexibility there with that timer if you need it. How great are these Elaine, the ladybugs, by the way? These are amazing. If I want to tell the kids how great they are, I could use the feedback tool in here too. I don't know if you use the feedback tool, but I can click this button here, add some feedback. They could see it right then and there in the slide. It doesn't alert them that the feedback's there, but if you train them to look for it, they'll pay attention for it. And often I just tell the kids, hey, look at the note I made to you. And I kind of train the kids to get used to sometimes the notes are just a positive thing about their work, and other times it might be a correction. That way they don't feel like they're singled out when I'm calling to them they know their answer's wrong or something like that. So if I want to give some feedback, I'll put it in here. Then both you and the student can see that feedback later in Reflect and Review. So maybe you do this after the fact, and then they can see it when they go into Reflect and Review. Or you can go back and reflect on it yourself as the instructor when you go look at them and reflect and review, which we'll look at later when the session's all over. You'll notice here, by the way, that as soon as that timer got down to 0, the slides are locked. The students can no longer write on them. They still have them up on their screen, but now I've got the class's attention to talk about whatever the prompt was, maybe share answers, maybe review them, and I can unlock them again if I want to give them more time. Oftentimes I lock them, we talk about it, go over it, and then I unlock them for them to maybe change or improve their answers. By the way, I love doing activities like this and then showing them to the whole class. If a student maybe indicates that they don't want their art shown to the whole class, or maybe there's something inappropriate about the artwork. I've been teaching 8th graders most of my career, so it happens. I do have that hide responses button. I'm using it more often for kids who don't want their answers shown than I am for kids who put something that I don't want to show, but you never know with middle schoolers, right? Now let's next look at one of my other favorite ExPEARt tricks in Pear Deck, and that is when I do fill in the blank questions. Now, as you can see, this slide looks pretty simple, right? There are sentences, there are blanks in them. Those blanks are represented by these rectangular shapes with the curved corners. It's a draw slide, and my kids are drawing or using the typing tool right inside of those blanks. That's nothing spectacular. Now, what's different and what's special here is those rectangles that you see actually have the correct answers underneath them. So back here in Google Slides, you could see that if I delete this box here, there's the correct answer underneath it. And if I delete this box, there's the correct answer. And if I delete this box, there's the correct answer. And if I delete this box, there's the correct answer. And again, if I delete this box, there's the correct answer. Now, that seems, okay, Jake, why would you do that? Well, if I go to animate, I could select each of these boxes to fade out or to fly out, or fly out to left or to right or to bottom or to top. and I have them go away off the screen when I click the button. So what I've set up in here is that this box will fade out first on the click, then second will be this box, then third will be this box, then fourth will be that box, then fifth will be this box, and then I don't know what this is down here. That's an accident. I don't know why they have that fading back in. But I've got these 5 boxes fading out on click. So now, once my kids are all the way done putting in their answers and showing how little they know about their father, I don't know why they got so many wrong answers in here. I think they're being a little bit goofy when they put some of these answers in. When they're done, I can click on the slide, just like I would in Google Slides, in either of the 2 Pear Deck windows, either on the projector view, which is nice because I could do it like if I'm on a smartboard or something like that, or I could do it on the teacher dashboard. And on that view, the boxes will disappear. Now, I gotta be honest, I have an accident in here, and when I actually recorded with the kids, I forgot to transition that first box to disappear. So just pretend it does. You could see the other 4 boxes disappearing on the click, and the correct answer appears. Now, it doesn't appear on the kids' screens, it just appears on my screen. So they need to direct their attention back up to my screen to see those answers populate in there. But it's neat, I think, that they're writing over top of the answer where a blank is, and then on my screen, the blanks go away. And the reason I showed this to somebody once, and they said, well, Jake, why not just put the right answers on the next slide? Well, that would work, but then how would the kids fix their answers if they're wrong? Right? So now I can unveil the answers one at a time, and my students could correct them on their screen as I go. So that's a neat trick that I do this for. Now, sometimes I don't do this. Sometimes I use the kids' answers to show off what's correct, and then they could fix based off of their classmates. So I'll share a kid's answers up on the screen. It's an even more powerful way to do it. But if I need to quickly go through a set of answers that I know are correct, I'll go through them from mine by creating these transitions and making blocks disappear off the screen. So what I did back in Slides was I wrote everything. My screen originally looked like this, and then I drew the rectangles over top of them. Then I set those transitions to make those rectangles disappear. When I clicked, they disappear and unveil the answers. Next, let's look at how to use that same kind of idea to do Mad Libs in Pear Deck. So I started this idea last school year. I had an idea that I wanted to introduce the units in my 8th grade science class by doing Mad Libs to this chapter description. So I wrote a paragraph describing each chapter. Then I wanted to sub out certain words in it, have them just make up nouns and verbs and adjectives and things like that to fill in. Then they read their silly paragraphs about what chapter 2 was about, and then I read the real chapter 2. It was a fun thing to do at the beginning of the year, and it also kind of introduced the concepts. Now, I planned on doing this in flippity.net, which is a great tool that has Mad Libs, Mad Lib generator in it, but it didn't work at that time. Flippity was having some problems, so I needed a plan B, and I turned to Pear Deck. So what I did here in Pear Deck, if I jump back over to the Google Slides, is I wrote up my paragraph. I put in blanks where I wanted there to be blanks, or words if there was a real word. So here in this example, this is just a Mad Lib, so blanks are appropriate. But for my chapter ones that I was doing in my science class, the real word was actually there. And then I added in rectangles over top of them. Each of those rectangles, I typed into them noun, verb, person, place, thing, adjective, adverb, whatever I wanted to. I pushed the text down to the bottom of the cell using this, and I pushed them over to the right of the cell using that, and I made sure it was a nice small font so the students would have room to write in that region right there. Then what I did was I drew a rectangle that covered the whole area, and first it would look like this, and then I used control down or command down here on my Mac to put it underneath everything else. And every time you click, it goes one layer deeper. And so I want to make it so that it's above the text, but below all the boxes. So I want it to be right there. So now the kids can't even see the original text. So now they have no idea what the text is. They just have these blanks to write in. And next, I've got to click on it and do that same transition click, make it it fade out when I click off of it. I'm going to not make these fade out, but I could if I wanted to unveil some real words back there. I'm just going to have this part fade out when I click, and then my kids will be able to fill in the Mad Lib and read their paragraph out loud. Now, unfortunately, they won't see it on their screen, but they'll look back and forth from my screen to their screen and fill in the blanks. Now, when I did it with my own kids, I just read it out and they filled in the blanks as I read it. So I read the first sentence, which was once upon a time. They filled in the name, and they filled in the next name. Went out to dinner at, and they filled in the place. They filled in the noun. Appetizer for the main course. They filled in person one's name again, and so on. And we had a good time giggling about it. So next up, let's look at a draggable slide. When I realized after, I don't even know how many uses of draggable slides, that I could have multiple icons, that blew my mind. And then one day I was teaching, for those science teachers out there, how we order the layers of rock underneath us, even when there's faults and breaks and intrusions and stuff like that. And the rest of you are like, what are you talking about? But when I was doing that, I was having the kids drag numbers, number one, this happened first, this happened second, this happened third, this happened fourth, and so on, onto the screen. And I wanted to be able to look at just one, like, what did everybody think was first? Because otherwise I had a bunch of numbers on the screen. I was like, I wish there was a way to look at them just one at a time. Well, there is. And so then I realized, wow, not only can I have them put 5 different icons on the screen, I could look at each icon individually. Did you know that? I bet you didn't know that. If you did, you might already be an ExPEARt, but I'm going to teach you now so that you can be an ExPEARt. So here in Google Slides, I've got my slide set up. I've got the 5 top songs from the Billboard's 2021 year-end Hot 100 chart. My kids are big music fans, so I thought they would enjoy this. But they're not in order. Those are the top 5, but not the order they're actually listed in. Notice, by the way, at the bottom, I also put in the description of what the Hot 100 is, because I never really understand what it is. So those notes are there for me to present from. And I do want to show you when we start presenting that I could still see those notes in Pear Deck. I'm not sure if you knew that. So to be an ExPEARt, you got to know that. So I'll show you that we could still see those notes while we're inside of Pear Deck. Okay, so let's make this a draggable slide. So I'm going to click on draggable. Draggable is one of the premium slides here. I'm going to switch over to a number slide. I often use this one here, but I'm going to go with a regular number 1 here. And then that'll show me the number 1 song. Well, what about number 2? And then, well, what about number 3? So I can just keep adding them in here. Now I'm limited to 5. So I can only have 5 icons to put on the screen. So 1 through 5. And I've sometimes done things where there's 6 on the screen. I just say leave the 6th without a label because we can only do 5. I can make them a little bit smaller if I want to, which I actually didn't when I did this with my own kids, but I wish I had so that they were a little bit smaller on the screen. One designer beware tip here is that they're always over there on the right side. So I often put my choices over towards the left so that I could see when the kid hasn't moved it yet. But you'll see there's one situation where one of my kids didn't move the number, and Pear Deck kind of doesn't count it as an answer because they didn't move it. So they do need to move it. So I like to make sure that they have to move it in order to put it in place. Here, my design's not so good because they could say that blinding lights is 3rd without even moving that 3 because it's already right there on top of it. Okay, so I'm going to update the slide, and now let's look at what this looks like actually in Pear Deck when I launch it and do it with my kids. So they put in their answers, they drag the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 where they think they belong. Then I bring up the answers. I want to look at them in the overlaid view, and I see 3 number 1s, 3 number 2s, 3 number 4s, 3 number 3s I skipped, and 3 number 5s on the screen in the locations that my kids have selected for them. That's a lot to look at. I only have 3 kids. Imagine a class of 25 or 30 kids. That's a lot of numbers on the screen. So down in the bottom right, I see a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I click on the 1, then I just see the 1s. And actually, I'm going to do it in the other order. We'll count down from 5 to 1. So I'll click on the 5. We'll see all the 5s. Click on the 4. We'll see all the 4s. Click on the 3. We'll see all the 3s. Click on the 2. We'll see all the 2s, and click on the 1 and we'll see all the 1s. Now the kids will still see all of their answers on their screen, but up on the projector or on my screen, I'll only see them one at a time. So what I like to do is go through what everybody chose to be 5th up on the screen, and then they could fix their answers on their screen. Okay, if this is 5th, I'll move that over. Then what's going to be 4th? I'll move this one over here, whatever they do. And then we'll look at 4th, and then we'll look at 3rd, and then we'll look at 2nd, and then we'll look at 1st. And again, a reminder, I can see the notes by clicking this notes button down here on the left side. So notes that you put into Google Slides also do show up in Pear Deck. So make use of that notes area. Now, Pear Deck puts their own notes down there to tell you what kind of slide it is, which can be useful to prompt you on that too. But you can also put in your own Google Slides notes just like you normally would in Slides. And by the way, as I go through here, notice that I could hover over the numbers and tell which number is which of my kids and see which kid put in what answers and look at each kid individually, or just hover over them and see them as we're looking at them. We'll see who maybe hasn't moved their icon. And you can see on one of them, you'll see that I only see 2 numbers on the screen, and that's because Beckett didn't move his number. I think he felt like it was in the right place to begin with, so he didn't move it. So Pear Deck was saying this isn't an answer yet. Now, the next thing I want to look at here are examples of websites or web content that when you put in a website slide and try to embed it, it doesn't work. 9 times out of 10, that's not statistically, I haven't calculated that, but almost all of the time, there is a way to make those sites that don't seem to work. And the best example of that is YouTube. If you go to a YouTube video and you copy a link to that YouTube video and you come back into your Google Slides and enter a website slide and then paste in that link, your students are going to find that the link doesn't actually work. The video isn't actually in there. They can click on it, a new tab will open up and they can play that YouTube video, but it doesn't play right there in Pear Deck. And especially with your littles, but with your big kids too, you want to try to keep them in that window as much as possible and keep the distractions like the YouTube ads and the YouTube recommended videos for sure. Keep those distractions out. We want to keep them in the Pear Deck. So how do we make a YouTube play in there? Well, all you've got to do is after the .com, so youtube.com, you need to add /embed. That's it. youtube.com/embed, E-M-B-E-D, and then let the rest of the link stay, and then it'll work. The YouTube video will play right there inside of the Pear Deck. And for almost any tool that you want to embed in Pear Deck and then it doesn't work when you try the link the first way, there's almost always a way to get it to work. Not always, but almost always there's a way we could change that link. Google it, track it down, ask on Twitter, and if you still can't find it, send me a message. I'll make sure I put my contact information up at the end. And if you can't figure out how to get that one EdTech tool or website to fit into your Pear Deck, I'll try to help you and figure it out with you because I want to know too, and I want to help you. That's what I do. Right? Speaking of helping you, the very last ExPEARt thing I want to show you is reflect and review. You cannot be an ExPEARt, my made-up term, if you're not using reflect and review, and if you don't have your students using reflect and review. Reflection, that self-assessment, that metacognition is such that thinking about the thinking, right, is such a huge part of what our students should be doing, and that formative assessment is such a huge part of what we should be doing. And what I love about reflect and review is we've always been able to go back in, if you're in a premium version of Pear Deck that is, go back in and see all of your students' answers on the slides, but you've got to look at them all jumbled in together. You've got to go slide by slide and look at maybe all 100 of your students all at the same time. Well, what if you just want to see how Johnny's doing, or in my situation, how Beckett's doing? Well, I could click open reflect and review afterwards, and I can come back to this later too, and I can go through and see all of his answers on every slide. And then if I'm like, how did everybody else do on slide 6? Then when I switch students, it stays on that same slide in that view, which I love because then I could see each of them individually. But I like that I could look at just one student and see maybe are they done, or how are they doing? Do they understand things? What kinds of supports do I need to give them? Right? Reflect and review, super powerful for formative assessment and for our students to self-assess and reflect. And a really wonderful thing, if you have one of the Google for Education accounts or the Google Workspace for Education accounts that are of one of the paid tiers, and you have access to Google Classroom add-ons, and you have premium Pear Deck in order to have Reflect and Review, you could see Reflect and Review while you're inside of Google Classroom, so you could see just that one student's work while you're entering in a score or feedback for that one student. So really powerful for that feedback piece. So I hope you feel a little bit more like an ExPEARt after attending this. I hope that you feel good about what you've learned. I hope this has been beneficial to you, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Thank you for watching. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being an educator. I think it is so rad that you have one of the hardest jobs that there is for humans to have, and here you are spending extra time learning how to do even more and even better with educational technology to benefit your learners. It's just so awesome of you. So thank you for that, and thank you for watching. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out at my contact information that you see on the screen here. And don't forget, go to jakemiller.net/exPEARt to enter to win one of those giveaways. I'll wait until I feel like everybody has watched the Pear Deck, Pear Fair stuff, and then I will pick a winner and send out an email. It might even be a few weeks later because I'm a busy guy too, just like you. But sooner or later, I'll pick those winners. Make sure you fill out that form so that you're entered to win. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being a part of Pear Fair, and have a great day.